There are a lot of known artists during the Renaissance period, right? But have you heard about Donatello? Donatello. You might probably watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If so, you're probably familiar with the fictional main character that wears a purple mask in animated cartoon, and his name is Donatello or Donnie.
You did it, Donnie! You're the best of the best of the best! Mwah!
2 kisses in 1 day. Eat it, Casey Jones. Eat it! Bow chicka bow bow!
However, in real life, the fictional character name was originally came from the famous Italian sculptor named Donatello. Now, who is Donatello? Donato di Niccolo di Berardi, better known as Donatello, born in 1386 and died in 1466, was a famous Italian sculptor during the 15th century Renaissance period. Donatello was born in Florence, Italy, sometime in 1386. His friends and family gave him the nickname Donatello. He grew up with the Mortelli family, a family that is wealthy and influential Florentine family of bankers and art patrons closely tied to the Medici family, which gave him artistic training at a very young age. Moreover, he was the son of Orso Bardi and Nicola di Berardi, a member of Florentine Woolcombers Guild. This gave young Donatello status as the son of craftsmen and placed him on a path of working in the trades. He was able to get a status just because of his dad. Before he was 20, he was receiving a lot of thanks for his work. Over his career, he developed a style of lifelike, Gothic style, highly emotional sculptures, and a reputation second only to Michelangelo's. Donatello is truly amazing, for he mastered multiple and different mediums for his sculptures. He mastered both marbles and bronze. But not only that, he also uses stone, wood, clay, stucco, and wax as a medium of his artworks. It was here that Donatello probably first received artistic training from a local goldsmith. His first major work was a marble David. He learned metallurgy and the fabrication of metals and other substances. In 1403, he apprenticed with Florence metalsmith and sculptor Lorenzo Ghiberti. A few years later, Ghiberti was commissioned to create the bronze doors for the baptistery of the Florence Cathedral, beating out the rival artist Filippo Brunelleschi. Donatello assisted Ghiberti in creating the cathedral doors. Eventually, he died of an unknown causes at the age of 80 years old on December 13, 1466 in Florence, and was buried in the Basilica of San Lorenzo next to Cosimo de' Medici. An unfinished work was faithfully completed by his student Bertoldo di Giovanni. He never married and seems to have been a man of simple faith. It suggested that he was some homosexual and made no secret of his sexuality. So you see, Donatello was an artist who influenced the world of art with his beautiful, lifelike sculpture, which were showcased throughout the 15th century of Italy.
Donatello's artworks. David, 1440 to 1460 bronze. Perhaps Donatello's landmark work and one of the greatest sculpture works of the early Renaissance was his bronze statue of David. This work signals the return of nude sculpture in the round figure, and because it was the first such work like this in over 1,000 years. It is one of the most important works in history of Western art. Donatello's latter, David, was the first freestanding bronze cast statue of the Renaissance era, as well as the first nude sculpture of the male since the classical sculptures of ancient Greece. The hero, or David, is pictured after defeating Goliath in this sculpture. He is nude except for his boots and a hat topped with laurel. Donatello borrowed from ancient Roman culture when including the laurel. It is a symbol of victory. Unlike Michelangelo's David, Donatello's David is extremely realistic and a prime example of Renaissance naturalism. His body appears light as he stands with one foot on the top of Goliath. His small frame and almost effeminate disposition imply that his victory is due to God's help. He holds a sword which looks huge in proportion to his body and smiles proudly. Penitent Magdalene, 1453 to 1455. The Penitent Magdalene is a wooden sculpture of Mary Magdalene. The sculpture was probably commissioned for the baptistery of Florence. The piece was received with astonishment for its unprecedented realism. It is now in the Museo dell'Opera del Duomo in Florence. We know that Magdalene is beautiful physically, pero ginawa ni Donatello na worn out si Magdalene physically dito. Kasi alam din natin na si Magdalene ay isang sinner at saka prostitute. In Donatello's sculpture, she appears penitent for his sin with an expression that pleads for forgiveness. Kasi alam din natin na si Magdalene ay humingi ng tawad kay Jesus sa dahil alam niyang makasalanan siya. Ito pa yung dalawang ginawa ni Donatello na sikat. Gatamelata, 1453 bronze statue. St. George, 1415 to 1417 marble statue. For further explanation, pwede namang i-search na lang. Thank you.
Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni, we'll just call him Michelangelo, was born March 6, 1475 in Caprice, Italy, and died February 18, 1564. Michelangelo had 4 brothers, and his father was a magistrate, and his mother stayed at home with the kids. Now, when Michelangelo was an infant, she became pretty sick. In fact, Michelangelo ended up having a wet nurse, so he ended up living with a family of stone cutters. By the way, did you know Michelangelo didn't want to be known as a painter? In fact, he would probably be insulted if you first referred to him as a painter, not a sculptor. Like many 16-year-old, Michelangelo didn't really care for school, so he often would skip class and head to the nearby church to watch the painter. His family detested art and felt like he was a disgrace to the family. It was definitely not a suitable profession for a man. After realizing that Michelangelo had some artistic talent, his dad encouraged him to find an apprenticeship where he could learn more about art. He went from a painter's workshop to then studying within a powerful rich elite family within Florence, the Medici family, the rulers of Florence. Working with this family gave him special privileges. One of those is being able to study dead bodies at the church waiting to be buried. This fueled his passion to understand human anatomy. And unfortunately, the stench and nastiness of the experience started to make him sick. Enough of that, just a few short years later, when Michelangelo was only 25 years old, it was apparent he had a black belt in sculpture. After relocating to Rome, one of the cardinals within the Catholic Church commissioned him to create a sculpture. Michelangelo, being pretty cocky at this time, said it will be the most beautiful artwork in marble Rome had ever seen. Actually, it's this sculpture La Pieta. Have you ever seen this one before? You bet you have. Michelangelo sculpted this from a single piece of a marble stone. Many pilgrims would come to Rome just to see this sculpture. After returning to Rome, he hears about a sculpture that 2 artists had abandoned because it was too difficult. Fueled with confidence from La Pieta, he takes over the job. David took 3 years to sculpt, probably due to its size of 17 feet. David quickly becomes the pride of Florence, and they even nicknamed it the Giant. After Michelangelo finishes this sculpture, his fame starts to build. In fact, word got to around to Pope Julius II. Immediately, Pope Julius commissions Michelangelo to create his tomb. This was huge for Michelangelo, especially since all he wanted to do was sculpt, and designing the tomb for the Pope was a huge honor. Michelangelo is so pumped to get going. He starts gathering a team, pouring the stone needed and working on his idea. Of course, right in the middle of this, the Pope turns his attention in finding to rebuild St. Peter's Basilica, which was falling apart. He is super frustrated to the Pope, and when he wouldn't pay Michelangelo back for the stone he bought, he leads back to Florence, vowing never to return to Rome. That is until the Pope sends him a request. Have any idea what he's about to ask him to do? That's right! Grab your paintbrush and get back to Rome and paint the Sistine Chapel. Believe it or not, no one wanted to paint the Sistine Chapel. This wasn't just about the painting process, this also had to do with the chapel itself. The Sistine Chapel was built in 1477 and was designed to the same biblical proportions as the Temple of Solomon, which made it a fortress. The walls at the base are 10 feet thick. Arrow slits added around the outside, and they even added special holes to pour boiling out of it. Pretty crazy. I bet you didn't know this, but the chapel had been painted before by a team of artists with 32 popes painted around the room and blue filled stars in the ceiling. After putting some of the Pope's muscle on Michelangelo, he told him he could only work on the tomb if he painted the Sistine Chapel. He reluctantly agrees.
David is a masterpiece of Renaissance sculpture created in marble between 1501 and 1504 by the Italian artist Michelangelo. David is a 5.17-meter marble statue of the biblical figure David, a favored subject in the art of Florence. Michelangelo crafted David between 1501 to 1504, restored in 2003 to 2004. He started the work when he was just 26 years old. It is located at the museum called Accademia Gallery in Florence, Italy. Si David daw ay isang obra maestra ng Renaissance na ginawa ni Michelangelo na isang Italian artist. Ito ay may 5.17 meter marble or marmol. Ginawa niya ito noong 1501 to 1504 at ibinalik naman niya ito noong 2003 to 2004. Ito ay ginagawa na niya agad noong siya ay 26 years old pa lamang. At ito daw ay matatagpuan natin sa tinatawag na museum o Accademia Gallery sa Florence, Italy. Facts about Michelangelo's David. Towering a height of 5.16 meters, almost 17 feet, a side short at 16 feet and 11.15 inches. It is made of one single block of marble from the quarries in Carrara, Tuscany, one of the whitest in the world. It weighs 5,660 kg or 12,478.12 pounds. It is made out of solid marble. The sling on his left shoulder and tree trunk behind his right leg were covered with gold leaf. Being outdoor in Piazza della Signoria in the elements for over 400 years, wash the gold leaf away. The story of David and Goliath is a biblical one found in Book 1 Samuel. The teenage David had to defeat the giant Goliath. He could not be defeated by the strength since David was smaller. It took cunning and skill to defeat someone bigger than him, and he did so with the slingshot. Ang kwento ni David at Goliath, hindi kinakailangan ni David na matalo ang isang higanting na si Goliath, na kahit siya ay maliit lamang, meron siyang kaalaman na kailangan gawin para matalo niya ito. At ginawa niya nga ito sa pamamagitan ng slingshot. Many statues before Michelangelo's that portray the story always show David after he has defeated the giant with the head by his feet. Michelangelo decided to go against the current and portray his David before the battle. You can see in his face the concentration of him thinking he is going to do it. The rock hidden inside his right palm. The slingshot seemingly at rest on his shoulder and him waiting for the right moment, pretending to be at easy. He could only defeat the giant if he caught him by surprise. And he did. Napatay niya si Goliath dahil sa karanasan niya siguro sa mga pagpatay niya sa mga leon or oso na kumakain sa kanyang mga inaalagaan na tupa. Kaya naman siyang ay nagdesisyon na lumaban kay Goliath at doon na nga, nung naglaban na sila, natalo niya si Goliath sa pamamagitan ng kanyang bato na nasa kanyang supot na ginamit niya ang kanyang tirador para matalo ito. At tumama nga ito sa noon ni Goliath at doon napatumba niya si Goliath. At ginawa niya, pinugutan niya ng ulo ito at dinala ito sa kaharian at ipinakita ito kay Saul. At doon sinabi ni Saul kung kanino ba siyang ama. At sinabi niya na siya ay anak ni Jesse na taga Bethlehem.
The Pieta sculpture, made by the Renaissance Michelangelo, is one of the most beautiful and impressive works in the history of Western art, and one of the best known by the author. Produced in 1499, the work is 175 by 195 cm. The artist represents the biblical scene in which is the Virgin Mary holds in her arms Christ, her son, already lifeless. This Christian theme is called Pieta, which in Italian means mercy or simply pity. Therefore, practically all works made with this art given the same name. The scene is related to Our Lady of Mercy and Our Lady of Sorrows. The sculpture is located in Vatican in St. Peter Basilica. On November 19, 1497, French Cardinal provided Michelangelo with a marble block from Cara Quaris. This so he could order a pieta for his grave. It is one of the first pietas to be carved. The theme was commonly depicted in painting in Italy, but in the form of sculpture, was commonly found in Germany and France. Michelangelo completed the sculpture in just 1 year, but the cardinal died in August 1499. The pieta was destined for the chapel of Santa Petronella, where the cardinal was buried for about 20 years. The sculpture was moved to St. Peter Basilica for a while in the sacristy, then moved to its present location, now poised in the first chapel to the right of the basilica. Kapansin-pansin yung edad ni Mary, masyado pa siyang bata kumpara kay Christ. Yung face, impenetrable, perfection. Her features are magnified, angelic, no emotion na gumugulo sa kanya. Mapapansin rin yung gesture ng left open hand. Ito ay mapapansin rin sa mga iba pang artwork ni Michelangelo. Michelangelo also argued that the Virgin was so pure that she did not age compared to Christ. The sculpture has pyramidal composition na nagpapakita ng realistic composition without the observer wondering about the size. This is the only work signed by him in the banner that goes through the Virgin cloak. You can read Mikia, Jealous, Bannerotas, Flaran, Inus, Pekibat, which means Florentine, Michelangelo Bon are who already made it. It is said that the signature was made in his by Michelangelo because he heard two men attribute his work to another artist. For this reason, the sculpture which justified the mistaken writing because he was so furious to leave his mark. Michelangelo later regretted the vanity of this act and resolved never to sign another piece of his work. On May 1st, 1972, a mentally disturbed geologist attacked Michelangelo's Pieta work in the Vatican while shouting, "I am Jesus Christ." On the day of the attack, the 33-year-old Hungarian-Australian Laszlo Toth struck the statue 15 times with a sledgehammer, damaging the nose, one eyelid, the elbow, in the arm. Some of the spectators present took the opportunity to take the piece of the statue, which later complicated the process of repairing the work. The Pieta is now protected with a bulletproof glass.